Should you focus on how or why when you are making a pitch, when you are making a beautiful elevator pitch? Should you focus on how or why? This is the topic of this video. If you like what you hear, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to stay up to date on my channel, and I hope you enjoy. So we're talking about a Harvard Business Review article. It's titled, "When Pitching an Idea, Should You Focus on Why or How?" And this is interesting here. What should you focus on? And for those who might be sitting there saying, well, I'm not pitching anyone, so I don't really care. Well, you need to be selling yourself in everything that you do. And that could be a job interview. It could be you starting a business. It could be anything. But I am a big believer in everyone should learn how to sell. Everyone should learn how to sell themselves. There's like certain tonalities and certain ways of approaching things that salespeople are very good at. And pitching is one of them. Pitching is one of those things that if you improve, you can influence more. You can influence your ideas more. It doesn't just have to be this big pitch that you work in a big company and have this big pitch. It doesn't have to be that. So this is relevant to anyone. Any freaking person here who wants to influence and become more successful, you need to learn how to pitch. So in this article, what do you use? The why or the how? And there seems to be two different camps, two different ideas on this. In one camp, there is a popular TED Talk by Simon Sinek, and he argues in order to mobilize people and resources that you should frame your message by using the why. Use the why in your communication to communicate your idea's purpose. And he says that it makes it easier for people to engage with the idea because it allows them to understand the motives and goals behind it. Okay, that's one camp. The other camp is there's an organizational psychologist, Adam Grant. He has a best-selling book, Originals, it's called, and he takes a different position. He points out that innovators who frame novel ideas by pointing to a lofty purpose are more at risk of violating people's notion of what is possible. Instead, Grant suggests skeptics may be more likely to persuade by focusing on how you plan to implement your idea. Okay. So who's right? Who the hell is right? Two different ideas. Ultimately, what this article goes to talk about is that no one person is right. They're both technically right. And the outcome of this article is that it depends on your audience. So the people in this article, they conducted a study, and they had two different groups of people. One were novices when it came to investing, and one were pros, investment, professionals who deal with pitches almost every day. And they're very used to hearing the same sales pitch. And what their findings were that novices were much more interested in the why, and your investment experts were much more interested in how are you going to implement that idea. And so there is no right or wrong answer. And based on this article, they're saying use both. If you're talking to someone who you know is not an expert in that field, or an expert in the technical side of things, probably should focus more on the why. And then to give you an example, this is going to be a very specific example, but like I said, this is relevant to anyone. Let's say you're pitching something that has to do with IT, and you talk to someone who doesn't really know IT, but let's say they own the business, and maybe you focus in on the why because that person runs the business. Let's say they run a coffee shop. I don't know. They run some company, but they're not familiar with how their tech works, and that's why they have an IT team. So for the company owner, you might focus on the why, and now you get past the owner, and now he says, okay, he or she says, go talk to my IT team. Now, when you're with your IT team, you have to understand that's a different audience. And now you got to focus on the how. They're going to be much more technical in what you're saying. The why is beautiful, but you now need to focus in on the how. Um, and so my thoughts are that makes a lot of sense to me. I think intuitively, you might already do that without realizing it. If you're talking to somebody super technical, maybe you get more into the how that works. So I think intuitively you might be putting that into practice. But it's good to see that they did a study and that's actually what it is here. That's what we should be doing. The other thought is, you might, depending on the audience, you might want to put both. You might want to put a why and a how. If you're thinking about making a pitch, always in my head, you always want to start with the why. Why are you doing all this stuff? What's your story? And depending how technical they are, then you could start getting into the how. But how I would always approach it is I think it's great to start off with the why and build a little bit of context. And you can probably balance it out here between the two audiences. When you're dealing with a novice audience who, in this article, they say focus on the why. I think you could put both. You put more of an emphasis on why, frame it up, put more of an emphasis on the why, and then you probably go into the how, but don't go anywhere near into the details that you can really get into. Focus on why, probably get into high-level how, so they just generally understand it. Now, on the experts, someone who's a super expert, in this example, in this article, they're financial experts. I still think you want to focus on the why. So maybe, though, you very slightly focus on the why, and then most of your emphasis gets pushed on the how, and then you go way deeper on the how than you did with the other audience. So that is how I think you can have a balance. I don't think that one audience can only deal with why and the other audience can only deal with how. I think there needs to be a balance struck with both. But who knows? Maybe you all have different opinions. So I'd love to hear it. If you have differing thoughts, if you have any other types of experience where your perspective here is valuable, please comment that in. I'd love to hear it. I think the audience here would also love to understand this. And I appreciate you watching and hope you have a good rest of your day.
Goes lights, camera action when I step into the limelight. Easily adapted to the high life. Dressed to impress like it's prom night. And when you live in top shelf, you know you gotta set the bar high. Had the same dreams.